20 stores closed in America yesterday. 20 more will close today. Nobody is telling you the real reason why. Stop and think about your own town right now. That Bed Bath & Beyond that anchored the strip mall on the main road, gone. The JCPenney your family went to every back-to-school season, shuttered. Maybe it's a Tuesday morning. The Rite Aid, the Pier 1 that just vanished one morning behind orange paper taped over the glass doors. No warning, no explanation. Just gone. You probably told yourself it was Amazon, that people got lazy, stopped driving, started scrolling. That's the story everyone tells. That's the comfortable answer. The comfortable answer is wrong. And the real answer, the one hiding behind every empty storefront in your town, is going to make you genuinely angry. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you the actual forces killing American retail, not the ones the news covers, the ones they don't. We're going to follow the money, meet the real people paying the price. And by the end of this video, you will never look at an empty storefront the same way again. Stay until the end. Because the last thing I'm going to tell you about what's coming in 2025 and 2026 is something almost no major outlet is talking about yet. Let's start with a woman named Linda and the text message that changed her life. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. I subscribe. And I'll personally welcome you into the family. With that said, let's get started. Segment 1, Linda's story. Linda Marsh is 58 years old. She lives in Youngstown, Ohio, a mid-sized city, the kind of American town you drive through on a highway and barely notice. Linda spent 14 years working the floor at her local Macy's, not a flagship store in Manhattan, just the kind of Macy's that exists in every mid-sized American city, where the staff knew your name, where the fragrance counter ladies remembered what your mother wore, where teenagers got their first job. Linda's store was not failing. It was profitable. Not just breaking even, actually making money for the company. And on a Tuesday morning in February of 2024, she got a text from a coworker at 7 a.m. that said, "Did you hear? We're closing." 3 weeks notice. 14 years. A text message. Linda called her manager. Her manager confirmed it. Corporate had made the decision. The store will be closed in 21 days. There was no town hall, no severance package above the legal minimum. No explanation of why a profitable store in a community that needed it was being ripped out of the ground. Linda started asking questions. She dug, and here's what she found, and what I want you to understand, because this is the key to everything. Her store's closure had nothing to do with her store's performance. It was a result of a debt restructuring deal that Macy's corporate entered into back in 2019. A deal made in a conference room thousands of miles away to satisfy Wall Street's demand that the company shrink its footprint and service its debt load. A deal no one on that sales floor ever voted on, ever signed off on, ever even heard of until the day they got the text. Linda now sells vintage clothing online. She says she's doing okay, but her town, 60,000 people, no longer has a single department store. 80 of her former co-workers are still searching for comparable employment 18 months later. And the building that was Macy's still sits there, dark, with paper on the windows and weeds pushing to the parking lot cracks. That image, that dark building in a town that needed it, is not an accident. It is the intended outcome of a financial system operating exactly as designed. And to understand why, you need to understand what private equity actually does to retail, because this is a story hiding behind almost every major closure in the last 20 years. Segment 2, the private equity playbook. Private equity. 2 words. Most people have heard them. Almost nobody actually understands what they mean for the stores in their town. Here is how the playbook works. Step by step, a private equity firm identifies a retail chain. They buy it, not with their own money, but almost entirely with borrowed money. Billions in loans. And here's the critical part that most people miss. That debt does not go on the private equity firm's books. It goes on the company's books. The company you just bought now owes billions of dollars it didn't owe yesterday, through no fault of its own management, its workers, or its customers. Then the private equity firm starts paying itself. Management fees, special dividends, consulting charges back to the company. They just load it with debt. They are extracting cash from a company that is now structurally disadvantaged, carrying a debt load that was designed to enrich the buyers, not sustain the business. And when the debt becomes impossible to service, the company files for bankruptcy. The private equity firm walks away. They already made their money. The workers lose their jobs. The stores close. The towns lose their anchors. The pension funds that lent the money take the losses. This is not a theory. This is documented. Harvard Business Review published research in 2022 showing that retailers acquired through leveraged buyouts were 3.8 times more likely to close stores or file for bankruptcy within 10 years than comparable retailers that were not private equity owned. Let's go through the names. Toys R Us. That company was profitable, growing, beloved by millions of families. In 2005, a group of private equity firms bought it and loaded it with $7.5 billion in debt. For the next 13 years, Toys R Us spent hundreds of millions of dollars every year just servicing that debt. Money that could have gone into store improvements, e-commerce, competitive pricing. In 2018, it filed for bankruptcy and closed over 700 stores. 33,000 people lost their jobs. The private equity firms had already taken their returns years earlier. Payless Shoe Source. Profitable. Killed by buyout debt. Gone. Sears, once the largest retailer in America, bought by a hedge fund manager who systematically dismantled it while extracting hundreds of millions in fees. Gone. Pier 1 Imports. JCPenney. Guitar Center. The list goes on. And in almost every case, you'll find the same pattern. A profitable or viable business, a leveraged buyout, years of debt servicing that starved the company of investment, followed by inevitable collapse. This is not a retail crisis. This is a private equity crisis wearing a retail costume, and it has been going on for 20 years in plain sight. But wait, because I know what some of you are thinking right now. What about Amazon? Isn't Amazon the real culprit? Let me show you something that will genuinely surprise you. Segment 3, the Amazon myth. Energy shift, camera wider, direct address. Everyone blames Amazon. It is the easiest story to tell, and in some ways it is not wrong. E-commerce competition is real, but here is a number that changes the entire frame of this conversation. Amazon controls approximately 13% of total U.S. retail sales. That means 87 cents of every dollar Americans spend at retail still happens in a physical store. The U.S. Census Bureau's Retail Trade Survey for 2023 shows that while e-commerce grew 7.6% year over year, physical retail also grew, up 3.2%. Both grew in the same year, simultaneously. So if Americans are still shopping in stores and physical retail is growing, why are stores disappearing? Because growth is not evenly distributed. The stores that are winning bigger. The stores that are losing everything. And the deciding factor, almost every single time, comes back to the same question: who owns the debt and how much of it is there? Amazon is a convenient villain because it lets the real villain stay invisible. Amazon did not kill Toys R Us. $7.5 billion in leveraged buyout debt killed Toys R Us. Amazon did not kill Sears. Decades of financial extraction by a hedge fund manager killed Sears. These are not the same thing, and conflating them lets the people actually responsible off the hook. Now, let me show you the second way this collapse spreads, because it doesn't stop with the big chains. It reaches every small business owner in the same parking lot. Segment 4, Marcus and the Anchor Effect. Marcus Webb has been fixing shoes in Phoenix, Arizona for 11 years. Good work. Fair prices, loyal customers who kept coming back. His shop sat in a strip mall anchored by a Bed Bath & Beyond. For over a decade, that arrangement worked. Bed Bath & Beyond pulled thousands of people into that parking lot every week. Some percentage of them walked past Marcus's window, noticed a sign, came in. That is how strip mall economies function. The anchor creates the gravity, and everyone orbiting it benefits. When Bed Bath & Beyond closed in 2023, one of over 900 locations they shuttered that year, something happened to Marcus that nobody warned him about and no headline captured. Within 90 days, his foot traffic dropped 61%. Not because anything changed about his business, not because his prices went up or his craftsmanship declined. but because the store that brought people to that parking lot was gone. And without that gravitational pull, nobody drove to that strip mall anymore. The other remaining tenants experienced the same thing. A hair salon, a tax prep office, a dry cleaner, all of them hemorrhaging customers. They never lost a competitor. They just lost them to absence. Research shows that up to 65% of small businesses in strip malls depend on anchor store traffic for the majority of their customer flow. When the anchor goes down, it doesn't drown alone. Marcus eventually relocated his shop to a food hall across town. His monthly rent tripled. He is surviving, but barely. He told a local reporter last year that he calls what happened to him and his neighbors the retail refugee crisis. People displaced not by anything they did wrong, but by a collapse that originated in a corporate boardroom and radiated outward until it swallowed every small business in its orbit. The strip mall Marcus left behind is still there. It is now more than half empty. And that brings us to one of the most alarming phenomena in American real estate right now. Something that is sitting in plain sight in hundreds of communities across this country. They're called zombie malls. And the danger they represent goes far deeper than empty storefronts. 8 to 9:45. Segment 5. Zombie malls and the human cost. Graphic. U.S. map. Zombie mall locations highlighted. Right now, across the United States, there are more than 300 shopping malls that are technically open. The lights come on in the morning. The doors unlock. Security guards make their rounds through corridors where the echo of your footsteps is the loudest sound. These malls are more than 40% vacant. They are generating just enough revenue to stay technically operational, not enough to maintain their facilities, attract new tenants, or serve any real function in the communities around them. Retail industry analysts call them zombie malls. Alive enough to cost money, dead enough to stop being useful. And here is what makes this a genuine crisis, and not just a real estate story. Most zombie malls are located in lower-income areas. These are not struggling luxury malls in affluent suburbs. They are the malls that served working-class and middle-class families. The malls that in many communities were the only large retail destination within a reasonable drive. The place that had the only pharmacy, the only sit-down restaurant, the food court that families went to on Sunday afternoons, the stores where teenagers got their first jobs and learned what it felt like to have a paycheck. When these malls fully collapse, and they will, the math makes inevitable what fills a gap. According to the USDA's Economic Research Service, which published a study on this in 2023, retail closures in low-income zip codes correlate with an average 18% increase in food insecurity within 24 months. Not inconvenience, not fewer choices, actual food insecurity, families going without. And layered on top of all of this is a financial time bomb that most Americans have no idea is ticking. Morgan Stanley projected in early 2024 that $1.5 trillion in commercial real estate loans are coming due by end of 2025. A significant portion of those loans are on properties that are already in default or technically underwater. Think about what that cascade looks like in practice. Empty stores mean landlords cannot generate the rent they need to service their loans. Banks that hold those loans take losses. That tightens credit across the board. New businesses that might want to open in those spaces cannot access the capital to do so, which means the spaces stay empty longer, which means surrounding property values continue to drop. The Journal of Urban Economics published research in 2023 showing that every anchor store closure reduces surrounding property values by an average of 12% in suburban markets. This is not just about where you shop. This is about the financial infrastructure of American communities being quietly dismantled, building by building, block by block, town by town. So what is actually working? Because there is a counter story here. And if you live in a community that is paying attention, it matters. Segment 6. What is actually working? Let me be clear. I am not here to tell you that retail is dying. It is not. I am here to tell you that the wrong retail is dying. And understanding that distinction is how communities, business owners, and local leaders can navigate what comes next. The stores that are growing right now share one characteristic. They are not just selling products. They are selling something to do, an experience, a service, a reason to get off your couch that a website cannot replicate. Apple stores generate approximately $5,500 in revenue per square foot, the highest of any major retailer in America. Not because Apple makes great products. You can buy Apple products online. Because walking into an Apple store is an event. There are people there who know things. You can touch everything. You can get your device fixed. You can attend a workshop. The store is designed to be worth the trip. REI, Warby Parker, Lululemon, all of them growing in an environment where dozens of competitors are contracting. All of them built around physical experiences, community programming, and services that do not translate to a browser window. The retail that is thriving in 2024 and 2025 is retail that understood one thing early. You cannot compete with a warehouse algorithm on price or selection. You compete on presence, on human interaction, on making the trip feel worth it. On the format side, the data is unambiguous. Target small format stores, locations under 50,000 square feet, typically in urban neighborhoods and college towns, grew revenue by 8.2% in 2023. Their large format stores declined 1.4% in the same period. The era of the massive big box store sitting in a sea of asphalt is contracting. The era of the nimble neighborhood integrated, right-sized stores growing. And on the community side, cities are being created with vacant retail, are seeing genuine results. Detroit and Pittsburgh have both invested seriously in converting empty retail corridors into mixed-use spaces, affordable housing above, community grocery and co-working in local markets below. Detroit's downtown retail vacancy rate dropped 22% between 2021 and 2023 using this approach. Pittsburgh has attracted a new wave of small-format independent retailers into spaces that major chains vacated. None of this is a complete solution. None of it reverses the private equity damage or prevents the commercial real estate reckoning that is coming, but it shows a path through for communities that are willing to be aggressive, creative, and fast. Which brings us to the final segment, the projection, the one that tells you what your town's storefronts are going to look like by 2027 and who they are going to be built for. Segment 7, the 2025 to 2027 reckoning. Core Site Research, one of the most respected retail analytics firms in the country, projects that between 9,000 and 10,000 additional U.S. stores will close by the end of 2025. That is on top of everything that is already closed. That is on top of Linda's Macy's, on top of Marcus's strip mall, on top of the 300 zombie malls already decomposing in slow motion across the country. But here's the number I want you to hold in your head alongside that one. In that same period, analysts project between 5,000 and 6,000 new stores will open. Retail is not dying. It is being replaced. The question, the only question that actually matters, is replace for whom? Look closely at the stores closing. They are mid-market. They serve the American middle class. Department stores selling clothes at moderate prices. Furniture stores accessible to a family on a median income. Home goods retailers where a couple furnishing their first apartment could afford to shop. These are the stores disappearing. Now look at what is opening. On one end, ultra-luxury. Hermes, LVMH, Rolex boutiques expanding aggressively into U.S. markets. Stores designed for the wealthiest 10% of Americans and the global tourist spending at those levels. On the other end, discount survival retail. Dollar General alone has announced plans for approximately 800 new store openings by 2026. Dollar General's core customer is a household earning under $40,000 a year, living in a rural or exurban area that major grocery chains have already abandoned. The top and the bottom are growing. The middle is hollowing out. And this is not just a retail statistic. This is a physical map of what is happening to American economic life. And it is visible in your town's storefronts if you know how to read it. The Macy's closed. The Dollar General opened. Both facts are simultaneously true, and together they tell a story about income stratification in America that is more honest than almost anything you will read in a think tank report, because you can see it from your car window. Linda lost 14 years of her working life to a debt deal she never heard of. Marcus tripled his rent just to keep his lights on. 80,000 American workers lost jobs in retail closures in the first 6 months of 2024 alone. And the communities absorbing those losses, the Youngstowns, the Phoenixes, the mid-sized American cities watching their commercial corridors go dark, are being asked to absorb them quietly, without accountability, without explanation, and without anyone in power acknowledging that this was a choice, not an accident. This happened because private equity firms were allowed to extract billions from viable businesses and walk away when the debt collapsed those businesses. That is the real reason stores are closing across the U.S. And until that changes, Linda's story will keep repeating itself, just with different names, different towns, different stores. So let's make sure this is crystal clear. Stores are not closing because you shop on Amazon. They are closing because private equity loaded them with debt they were never designed to survive. Because anchor store collapses took entire ecosystems of small businesses down with them. Because $1.5 trillion in commercial real estate debt is coming due, and the math does not work. And because the economic sorting of America is showing up first, and most visibly, in which stores stay open and which ones go dark. You are not the problem. Your shopping habits are not the problem. The problem is a financial system that was allowed to treat retail chains and the communities that depended on them as vehicles for short-term extraction rather than long-term value. That story deserves to be told. And now you know it.